You won't believe what he did last night. Sarah's voice came in clear, followed by a snort of laughter. I froze just outside the living room door, my hand hovering above the doorknob. The sound of Sarah's voice was so familiar, yet there was a bite to it I didn't recognize. I had come home earlier than expected from work, excited to surprise her with dinner. The smell of takeout still wafted from the bags I carried. My heart raced as I leaned closer, pressing my ear against the door. What now? More of his awkward dad jokes? Another voice chimed in, unmistakably. It was Adam, her best friend. Their laughter echoed in the small apartment, making me feel as though the walls themselves were mocking me. My grip tightened on the door handle, unsure whether to walk in or listen further. Oh God, no, Sarah said, her voice dripping with disdain. Worse. So much worse. She paused, and I could imagine the sly smirk spreading across her face. Last night, after we watched that stupid action movie he picked, he tried to serenade me. Adam burst out laughing, and I felt my heart plummet into my stomach. Are you serious? Adam asked, trying to catch his breath between fits of laughter. What was it this time, a Coldplay song or something equally cringy? Sarah's laugh rang out louder now. Close. Some 90s boy band ballad. He even had this ridiculous, dramatic hand gesture thing going on. Like, he thought it was sexy or something. I almost died trying not to laugh in his face. I winced. That song. I remembered the exact moment she was talking about. I had put on Backstreet Boys because it was playing on some nostalgia playlist. I thought it would be fun, a little goofy even. I never imagined she found it so pathetic. Oh man, Adam said, his voice now full of sarcastic sympathy. You've got yourself a real romantic there, huh? You don't even know the half of it, Sarah replied, her tone darkening. Like, I get it, he's sweet sometimes. But honestly? He's just so boring. Boring. That word hit harder than I expected. I knew I wasn't the life of the party, but I thought Sarah loved me for who I was, awkward moments and all. Now, hearing her say it out loud, to her best friend, was like a dagger to the chest. Ugh, tell me about it, Adam groaned. Every time we hang out, it's the same thing. He's just always there, you know? Like a shadow, always hovering. Well, at least you don't have to live with him. Sarah's voice lowered, but I could still make out the words. I swear, sometimes I think he just follows me around like a lost puppy. And the worst part? He doesn't even get it. He has no idea how much it drives me insane. I took a step back, feeling a lump form in my throat. Had I been suffocating her? I thought being close was what made our relationship work. But now, it sounded like I had been pushing her away without even realizing it. I mean, come on, Adam continued, clearly enjoying this more than he should. The dude's harmless, but it's like dating a cardboard cutout. Exactly, Sarah agreed. He tries, sure, but it's just so lame. I don't know how much more I can take. The finality in her words struck me like a slap to the face. Was she really this unhappy? I'd had no clue. To hear her speak so casually about it, like I was some burden she had been carrying, made my chest tighten. Well, you could always dump him, Adam suggested. I heard the teasing edge in his voice, but a part of me wondered if he was serious. I mean, come on, you've got options. Sarah didn't respond immediately. The silence between them stretched, and I held my breath, waiting for her answer. Yeah, maybe, she finally said, her voice softer now, almost hesitant. But I don't know. It's not that easy. Oh please, Adam scoffed. Don't tell me you're one of those people who stay in a relationship out of guilt. I'm not, she snapped back, defensive now. It's just, he's a good guy, you know? He's done nothing wrong, but it's just not enough anymore. My world spun. I had always thought we were solid, that our bond was unbreakable. Sure, things hadn't been perfect, but I never imagined she felt this way, trapped, suffocated, disillusioned. And besides, Sarah added with a sigh, I don't want to be the bad guy. He's so sensitive. He'd fall apart. Adam hummed in agreement. True. He's got that nice guy syndrome written all over him. The kind that makes breaking up super messy. I just I need space, Sarah confessed, her voice quieter now, almost like she was admitting it to herself more than Adam. I need to breathe. I love him, but it feels like I'm suffocating. Love. That one word kept echoing in my head. Did she still love me, or was it just something she said out of habit? Their conversation faded into a low murmur as I stumbled back down the hallway, the bag of takeout still in my hand. My chest felt heavy, like I had been punched in the gut. Everything I thought I knew about our relationship suddenly felt like a lie. I leaned against the wall, my thoughts racing. How could I confront her about this? How could I face her, knowing how she truly felt? A mixture of anger, sadness, and confusion boiled inside me, but one thing was clear: nothing would ever be the same. The following days felt like I was walking on shattered glass, each step cutting deeper into the fragile illusion I had once called our relationship. The conversation I overheard replayed in my mind relentlessly, each word Sarah had said carving out a piece of my heart. I wanted to confront her, to ask her why she felt this way and when things had started falling apart. But the idea of hearing more painful truths terrified me. It was a Friday evening when I finally decided I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal. I sat on the couch, absently flipping through the channels, waiting for her to come home from work. The silence of the apartment felt suffocating, pressing down on me. I kept glancing at the clock, my pulse quickening with each passing minute. The door finally creaked open, and Sarah stepped in, her face lighting up with a smile as she saw me. "Hey, you're home early again. What's the occasion?" She set her purse down, kicking off her shoes in that casual, carefree way that used to make me smile. Now, it just reminded me of how comfortable she was, how easy it was for her to lie, to laugh behind my back. "Yeah, I wanted to talk." My voice came out smaller than I intended. I hated the way it sounded, weak, unsure, like I was afraid of what I had to say. Sarah raised an eyebrow, her movements slowing as she walked toward me. "Oh. What's going on?" I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat threatening to choke me. "I overheard you the other day. When you were talking to Adam." Her smile faltered, and for a moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes, guilt, perhaps, or maybe panic. She shifted awkwardly, crossing her arms. "What do you mean?" "I came home early," I began, struggling to keep my voice steady. "I heard you making fun of me. Brutally." Her face went pale, and she opened her mouth as if to speak, but no words came out. "You called me boring," I continued, unable to stop the rush of words now that they had started. "You said I'm like a lost puppy, that you feel suffocated. That I'm lame." I hated the way my voice cracked on that last word, like it still held some power over me. But it did. Her insults had burrowed deep, tearing at my confidence. Sarah's mouth opened and closed, but no immediate response came. She seemed frozen, unsure of how to navigate the minefield we were suddenly standing in. "I didn't mean it like that," she finally stammered, running a hand through her hair nervously. "It was just. You know how Adam is. We were joking around." "It wasn't serious." "Joking around?" I repeated, my tone harder now. "You said you're suffocating. You said I'm lame. That's not just a joke, Sarah. That's how you really feel, isn't it?" She looked away, her fingers twisting nervously in the hem of her shirt. "I didn't mean for you to hear that. It was just venting. I've been stressed, and... So you trash me behind my back?" My voice rose despite my efforts to keep it calm. The hurt and betrayal swelled inside me, mixing with anger I hadn't even realized I was holding back. "Instead of talking to me, you go to Adam and make fun of me? That's how you deal with things?" "It's not like that," she pleaded, her eyes finally meeting mine, wide with regret. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just frustrated. Sometimes, I feel like we're stuck, you know? Like we're in this routine, and it's suffocating." I stood up from the couch, pacing the small living room as I tried to process her words. "So what? You think I'm some dead weight holding you back?" "No," she said quickly, stepping closer to me. "I don't feel that way all the time. It's just... I've been feeling trapped lately. It's like we're always doing the same things, and I don't know how to talk to you about it without sounding ungrateful." "Well, you sounded pretty clear when you were talking to Adam," I shot back bitterly. "You didn't hold back then." Sarah winced. I know. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said those things. Her apology hung in the air between us, but it didn't bring the comfort I expected. I wanted to forgive her, to say that we could move past this, but the wound was still raw. The truth was, hearing her mock me so easily had changed something inside me. I wasn't sure if it could ever be undone. So what now? I asked, turning to face her. Do you still feel that way? Do you still think I'm boring? Am I just not enough for you anymore? Sarah hesitated, her eyes flicking to the floor. I don't know, she whispered, her voice barely audible. My heart sank. It was the one answer I hadn't wanted to hear. I do love you, she added quickly, as if sensing my reaction. But I don't know if we're as happy as we could be. I think I've been avoiding it for a while now. I let her words wash over me, the weight of them sinking in. And what about Adam? I asked, my voice laced with suspicion. You two seem pretty close. Her eyes snapped up to mine, shock registering in her expression. Adam? No, it's not like that. He's my best friend. That's all. I've known him since college. But you feel more comfortable telling him how you really feel than telling me. Sarah looked down again, guilt written all over her face. I didn't think it was that serious. I didn't realize how much it was hurting you. It's not just about me, I said, shaking my head. It's about us. If you're not happy, then we need to figure out why. If you feel like you're suffocating, maybe we need to give each other some space. She blinked, the word space hanging between us like a heavy cloud. What are you saying? I don't know, Sarah, I admitted, feeling the knot in my chest tighten. Maybe we both need time to figure out what we really want. Sarah stood there, silent, her face a mix of confusion and hurt. The distance between us suddenly felt vast, a chasm that neither of us knew how to cross. And for the first time since we had started dating, I wasn't sure if we ever would. The days following that conversation were suffocatingly quiet. Sarah and I drifted around each other like ghosts, our usual routines interrupted by the tension that hung in the air. There were no more casual jokes or stolen kisses in the kitchen. Instead, we lived in a state of polite avoidance, each of us afraid to say what we were really thinking. I spent a lot of time sitting on the couch or staring out the window, trying to make sense of everything. Had our relationship always been heading toward this? Was Sarah's frustration inevitable, something I had missed in my own comfort? Or had it all just changed in the last few months? Sarah, on the other hand, seemed more distant than ever. She would leave for work early, come home late, and when we were in the same room, the silence stretched so thick it was hard to breathe. There was a distance between us now that I didn't know how to bridge. One evening, nearly a week after the confrontation, Sarah came home to find me sitting at the kitchen table. I had been nursing a glass of whiskey, something I rarely did, but tonight felt different. I had been replaying our conversation in my head for days, trying to find some clarity. She paused in the doorway, her eyes flicking to the glass. Hey, she said, her voice cautious. You all right? I looked up at her, studying her face, searching for the Sarah I used to know, the one who laughed with me, shared everything with me. But now, all I saw was someone who was slowly slipping away. I've been thinking, I started, my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside. About what you said. About how we've been stuck. She nodded slowly, stepping into the kitchen but not sitting down. Her arms crossed over her chest defensively, as if she were preparing for another difficult conversation. And? She asked softly. And, I continued, setting the glass down and leaning forward slightly, I think maybe you're right. Maybe we have been stuck, and maybe I didn't see it because I was too comfortable. But if I'm being honest, I don't want to keep pretending like everything's okay when it's not. Sarah's face softened, a mix of relief and sadness flooding her features. I don't either, she whispered. I've been struggling with this for a while. I just didn't know how to bring it up without hurting you. Well, you did a hell of a job of that with Adam, I said bitterly before I could stop myself. Her face fell, and I immediately regretted it. But the wound was still raw, and I couldn't just let it go. I know, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I messed up. I shouldn't have said those things, and I'm sorry. I was frustrated, and he's always been someone I can vent to. I took a deep breath, trying to push the hurt aside. Do you even want this anymore? I asked, my voice calm but heavy with the weight of the question. Us. Do you still want to be with me, or are you just holding on out of guilt? The silence that followed felt like an eternity. Sarah's eyes welled up with unshed tears as she stared down at the floor, unable to meet my gaze. Finally, she spoke, her voice trembling. I don't know, she admitted, and the raw honesty in her voice was like a punch to the gut. I've been so confused. I do love you, but I don't know if it's enough anymore. I don't know if we're enough. The words hung in the air, and for the first time, I felt the reality of what was happening, the slow, inevitable unraveling of everything we had built together. I nodded, my throat tightening as I processed her answer. I guess. That's the answer, then. Sarah looked up at me, tears spilling down her cheeks now. I never wanted to hurt you, she said, her voice choked. I never wanted things to end like this. I know, I said quietly. Neither did I. We sat in silence for what felt like hours, both of us lost in the weight of what was happening. This wasn't the dramatic, fiery end you see in movies, with shouting and slammed doors. It was a quiet, aching realization that sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes, people grow in different directions, and no amount of effort can pull them back together. Finally, I spoke again, my voice steady but laced with sadness. Maybe we both need time apart. Some real space to figure out what we want. Maybe after some time, we can see if there's still something here worth saving. Sarah nodded slowly, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. Yeah, she whispered. Maybe. I stood up from the table, walking over to her. I hesitated for a moment before pulling her into a hug. She clung to me, her body shaking with quiet sobs, and for a brief moment, we were us again. But even in that moment, I knew it was temporary, a flicker of what used to be, a goodbye more than a reconciliation. When we finally pulled apart, I looked into her tear-streaked face and forced a small, sad smile. I'll stay with a friend for a while. Give you the space you need. Sarah nodded, her lips trembling as she tried to hold herself together. Okay. I packed a bag that night, throwing in essentials and not much else. I wasn't leaving for good, not yet, but it felt like I was walking out of something that had been slowly crumbling for a long time. The apartment was eerily quiet as I zipped up my bag, and when I turned to see Sarah standing in the doorway of our bedroom, her arms wrapped around herself, I felt the full weight of what we were losing. You'll call me? She asked, her voice so small it almost broke me. Yeah, I said softly. We'll figure it out. I walked out of the apartment, my heart heavy but my mind strangely clear. I didn't know what the future held, whether we would find our way back to each other or if this was the beginning of the end. All I knew was that something had to change. We couldn't keep pretending, couldn't keep hurting each other in silence. As I stepped outside and into the cool night air, I took a deep breath. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally seeing things clearly. This wasn't the end of my story, not yet. But it was the end of something I had thought would last forever. And now, I had to figure out what came next.